In 1995, long before the runaway box office success of Rush Hour and The Matrix, visionary director Steve Wang was making martial arts movie history. Restricted by a modest $3.5 million budget and a grueling production schedule of only 6.5 weeks, Steve worked tirelessly for up to 22 hours a day with ace fight choreographer Koichi Sakamoto and his Alpha stunt team to create the first truly dynamic, exciting, and technically accomplished martial arts action-adventure ever produced by a Hollywood studio. The movie is Drive, starring action superstar Mark Dacascos and livewire comedy talent Kadeem Hardison. What follows is a candid behind-the-scenes look at the people responsible for one of the most genuinely groundbreaking but largely undiscovered classics of modern action cinema. Born in Taiwan, Drive director Steve Wang grew up on a staple diet of kung fu flicks, both homegrown and imported from Hong Kong and Japan. And although he immigrated to the United States at the age of 9, his interest in the genre continued into adulthood. His first movie, Kung Fu Rascals, which unbelievably Steve made for a mere $40,000, is a remarkable debut project and a popular cult hit in many countries. The fluid, high-energy fight sequences in Guyver 2: Dark Hero further consolidated his reputation with action fans upon its release in 1994. Steve has a distinguished background in conceptual artistry and special makeup effects, having previously worked with Academy Award winners Stan Winston, Rick Baker, and Dick Smith. Steve has sculpted creatures for such mainstream cinematic favorites as Gremlins, Godzilla, and Alien Resurrection. His highly developed sense of visual perception gives Steve a head start over many directors when it comes to the development and execution of high-impact fight action. Producer Mike Leahy recalls how Steve came to be involved in the Drive project.
I met Steve Wang through a mutual friend of ours where he showed me a demo reel of some of the work that he'd done in the past. And immediately I knew I had to work with him on something. And we had an opportunity to go to Romania and check out some locations for a sequel to Fist of the North Star. And we realized that wasn't kind of gonna fit our timeline, but another script fell into our laps called Drive, which Scott Phillips wrote. And we took that and adapted it to some of the important aspects that Steve wanted in the film, namely Mark Dacascos, who plays Toby Wong, and looking for someone that can have some comedy to bounce off of, and we thought of Kadeem. He'd just done Vampire in Brooklyn, and I don't know if you've seen that film, but he's great in it. I mean, you know, he outshines Eddie Murphy. And Drive fell in our lap, and we went off to now make this Hong Kong epic in Lancaster, California.
And what attracted me about Drive was that I felt it had very strong characters. It had really a lot of neat things going for it character-wise, and that it was a road movie. I really love that fact that it was a quirky road movie. The dialogue was snappy, it was funny, there was some really neat stuff in it. But overall, the structure of the film and the action style wasn't really what I wanted to do. It was more of a car chase, gun battle type movie. So I asked them, I said, well, yeah, I'll do this film if you let me rewrite the action sequences to tailor more of my taste, you know? And they said, yeah, sure, go ahead.
There was like a pretty fair amount of collaboration between me and Steve on the final script. We went through a bunch of drafts together. In some cases, we'd just sit down and work out stuff together. In other cases, Steve would work on things, notes, or actually go over the draft and then give it to me, and I'd work on it again. Like the gravel yard fight in the original script was this running gun battle in Land Rovers that was just way too much for the budget and the time that we had. And ultimately, I think it came out better, just having more martial arts action in it.
What did you do? Two words come to mind when I think of Drive. Singular vision. It was a beautiful thing when we all got together at my house for dinner one night in prep, where we all sat down and said, what are we making here? And everybody across the table, Mark, Kadeem, Steve, and I, it was a singular vision. We were going to take this money, and it wasn't a lot of money. We were going to take this money and make the kick-ass Hong Kong movie with English as the premier language.
It was just a 6.5-week rush. I mean, I was tired basically the whole time. After the first day, I was tired the whole month and a half. But I've never been so happy and excited on a project consistently all the way through, you know. And I've never gotten so beat up before in my life. But I was happy to get beat up, you know, because I would see dailies the following day and go, man, this is working.
It was a script that was that probably would have never made it to me, but my agent at the time, they knew I'd been talking about Hong Kong and action and animation and just the kind of things I talked about wanting to do as an actor. They sent me this little script that they said was going to be like, you know, a karate style, and I read it, and I liked the character, and there were things I could relate to, and I saw places where I could definitely boost it up a little bit comedy-wise, but I didn't see, you know, on the paper, you can't read action, you can't read how it's gonna look. So they said, if you like it, we'll set up a meeting with the director. Okay. And I met Steve Wang, and actually I think first, before I met him, they sent me tapes of what he had done. They sent me Kung Fu Rascals and Guyver. And then after seeing that, I was like, oh, I definitely want to meet this guy. You telling me that this guy lives in America? I got to meet him.
For me, I've never set out to be an art filmmaker. You know, I've never wanted to go out and say, you know what, I'm going to make Dances with Wolves, or although I personally would love to have done a film like that. My main goal as a filmmaker, at least for now, is that I want to entertain people. I want to be able to take them away from their homes for 2 hours or video, whatever, and to be able to just entertain the shit out of them. And the one thing that Drive proved to me was that I had the ability to do that, and that really meant a lot to me, because early on, from the early test screenings up till the final version of the film, the screening was consistent all the way through. Every single time, the audience loved it. They were howling, they were cheering, laughing through the entire film. The reactions were phenomenal. I've never made a film that got that kind of reaction.
Working on Drive as a stunt fight coordinator was almost like someone give you a playground, you know, do whatever you want to do. Because me and Steve work together very closely, and he gives me a lot of control as far as the scheduling, camera angle, creativity for the fight choreography, and we all work together well.
I think Drive is strongest in that it's a Hong Kong style action film, so it has those elements for people who really love martial arts action. At the same time, it's got a very nice group of characters. Mark Dacascos, Kadeem Hardison, Brittany Murphy. They're all wonderful together, and the energy on the screen is great. And in a lot of our previous screenings, there was a great response to the interactions just for the characters. So we had a great female response to the movie. We had great people who don't even watch martial arts films, who I know really enjoyed this film for those reasons, because they got behind the characters, they liked the comedy in it, and then the action was, you know, fantastic.
Early on, I knew we had something special. Everybody plugged in 110% as far as, you know, working on Sundays, seventh days. I remember Steve would literally, this isn't just a story. He would literally shoot with a crew all day long. Then we would send everybody on the first crew home and bring a second crew in, keep our main stunt guys, and Steve would work well into the evening. And sure enough, we had a call time the next morning at 7 a.m. with the first crew that had gone home and slept and ate dinner and spent time with their family. And Steve would go the next day, we'd take lunch at noon or 1 o'clock. He would go and sleep his 35 minutes during lunch. And I remember this sad looking guy comes stumbling, you know, the poor PA's got to go knock on the door to wake up this director that's been up 24 hours, you know, sleeping for 35 minutes. And I remember Steve showing up on the set after one lunch. You know, everyone, the whole first crew has gone home, right? So they're having lunch, eating away, and Steve walks out with these big bags under his eyes, just totally lost to the world. But he was a mission, man. He had a singular vision. This is the time we have to make this movie happen from this date to this date, and he just kicked ass, you know, every moment he could.
Myself, personally, I'm not a huge martial arts action fan, but watching the way this film was put together and watching the things that Steve did on set with Mark Dacascos, the wire work. Mark is amazing, did virtually all his own stunts in this film. It was amazing to watch for anybody. The acrobatics and the dance quality of the film is really exciting to watch.
Heading up the talented cast, physical genius Mark Dacascos has been learning martial arts since the age of 4. Indoctrinated in the effective street art style Wun Hop Kyun Do by his father Al Dacascos, Mark is as effective off the screen as he is on. Producer Mike Leahy vividly remembers his first introduction to Hawaii's answer to Bruce Lee.
Specifically, I remember the first time meeting Mark Dacascos. We went to a restaurant in the Valley, and Steve was pretty adamant about us needing to hire this guy, Mark Dacascos. And I met Mark, and he was telling a story, and at one moment he moved his hands. I'm doing it about 1/100th of the speed that Mark moved his hands. And it was like I was sitting across from a puma that was just so delicate and so graceful and so methodic in his approach. While he's eating a hamburger, I just knew this was the guy that we needed to hire.
Mark was the guy I wanted from the beginning for this movie. Because the one thing that it's really hard is a lot of people in Hollywood, you know, the guys who make the big movies, you know, they don't understand this. And that is, it's really hard to cast somebody who can do the acting, give you the performance, who can also do the action that is required in this kind of movie without looking like they've been doubled every 5 seconds.
I love to train in martial arts. I was a Hawaiian boy spending most of my teen years in Hamburg, Germany, and my sanctuary was in the Kung Fu school. I was a foreigner, and although I had a lot of good friends, Kung Fu and Jackie Chan was a huge influence in my life. Matter of fact, when I was 17, I moved to Taiwan for 6 months, and I studied martial arts there, and I actually got to meet Jackie Chan when I was 17 years old. He was a huge influence, and I think Jackie Chan was the one that inspired me to really get into gymnastics and do flips and all that. Matter of fact, I attribute myself almost breaking my back to a Jackie Chan film. In one of the movies I saw him do, he ran up something and did a backflip, and I thought, oh, that looks so cool, and he does it so well. I don't know if it doesn't, you know, he made it look like it was not that hard. So I went back to our Kung Fu school, and the ceilings were only, I don't know, maybe 9.5 feet high, 10 feet high. And there was this beam in the middle of the gym, and I thought, okay, well, I'm just gonna run right up the beam and do a backflip, because I can do a backflip, so I'll just run up and do a backflip. It'll be even easier. And what happened was I ran all the way up to the top, that my head hit the ceiling. So before I even did the flip, I was falling backwards, and bam, hit my back on there, you know? So I realized that it was not as easy as it looked. However, a couple months later, I tried it again and made it, and was aware of the ceiling. But Jackie Chan was just, he was huge for me. Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan.
Working with Mark DeCasco, that was a great experience because Mark himself is a martial artist. He does kung fu, the kind of style that we like. And Mark can perform all these stunts himself. Physically, he's a very talented person, not just martial arts, but also gymnastics, acrobats, acting between the fight, everything. A lot of times, some actors, even though they do fight scenes, but their face totally dead when they do a fight scene. Like this, there's no expression on their face. But Mark got everything. And he's better than a lot of stunt guys out there. So we had great fun. I asked Mark, can you do this? He said, sure, no problem. He performed.
As an actor, Mark has got a real unique quality that a lot of the quote-unquote action stars don't have. It's a vulnerability, it's a likability, it's a charm that we really try to capture in Drive. Instead of giving you just a tough guy, Mark brings a whole different aspect to it, where he can have that, but he also can be really vulnerable and tender. And comedic, which I think worked really well in the movie.
As an actor, it was very challenging. As a martial artist, it was extremely challenging because anything that I had learned in my life, Koichi and Steve were pretty much putting it to use. So I did a movie called Only the Strong, and some of the capoeira moves we used. I was a gymnast, and they used that, you know, the things that I could do. They put that in there, and then all of the martial arts and kung fu fighting, of course. Matter of fact, I've never even trained as a singer, and Steve still put that to use. As a matter of fact, he got me to write my own lyrics, so I wrote the lyrics to that song. And originally, he was only going to have me do the first 2 or 3 lines. And then I recorded the song a couple nights prior to when we actually filmed it, and he liked it, so he ended up having me sing the whole song.
Matching Mark's physical prowess with charisma and comedic flair is co-star Kadeem Hardison. As one of America's best up-and-coming comic talents, Kadeem was the perfect choice for the pivotal role of Malik Brody in Drive.
We just arranged a meeting with Kadeem and met with him, and right away I thought, this is the guy. This guy's perfect. You know, Kadeem was such a talented actor, great at ad-libbing and improvisation.
Y'all going, this ain't the Batmobile, man. You made it throw a ride, it's an old car.
And so we got Mark and Kadeem together, and you know, to dinner to see the whole chemistry thing, and I was so happy that there was chemistry there. It was just amazing how these two guys could really kind of feel comfortable with each other.
I felt my job was to make Mark laugh and to make him feel at ease. So we were in the car one time, and he tells me this story about the bio engine that he has in his chest. And as an ad-lib, I said, really?
Wow, that's a pretty amazing coincidence, Toby, because I have one in my ass.
He wanted to really be serious in that moment. You know, that's one of those moments where, you know, he could come back at me with some fire. So when I say I have one in my ass, Mark goes, you can see him just smiling just a little bit, and he hates it. Every time he watches, every time he gets to that moment, he jumps up and he screams about he should have been serious in that moment. Well, he could have been, but it was funny.
One of the great things about working with Kadeem is that as an actor, as a real life person, you never know what he's going to do. He could be just one liner or maybe not even a line, and somehow the bastard sneaks in lines that are so funny and pertinent to the script that you just got to keep him in there, and Steve did. Steve was, I mean, he was the first one to crack up. Well, I'm trying to keep a straight face, working with Kadeem the funny man.
In addition to his undeniable chemistry with Mark, Kadeem also sets the sparks flying with effervescent co-star Brittany Murphy, who played gun-toting wildflower Deliverance Bodine.
When Brittany came on the set, she set it on fire and just gave me so much more to play off. She came on the set. We didn't meet before. I know she's from New York, so there we're connected. I feel like all of us, all the actors, anybody who comes out of New York are related. We're all related in some way because we come from that place. She came on the set. She blew it up. You know, I had no idea what to expect. And I didn't meet her beforehand, so I didn't know, you know, I knew that there was a whole bunch of different directions you could go with this character. And And I probably was thinking that she was going to be really sexy and really, you know, hot and really, you know, full of it. And Brittany was just the perfect balance of all of that. And then sweet and innocent and adorable. So it was simple. All I had to do was listen to her talk and then react. And that made for great chemistry.
I had to cast the role of Deliverance. And the way she was written in the script, she was written as a sort of a 16-year-old blonde, kind of wildflower, very sexy. I thought I should cast somebody who was young, but maybe not entirely sexy, you know, just somebody who's trying to be sexy. And saw over 100 different girls, very talented actresses. Some are just drop-dead gorgeous, you know. And, you know, none of them were really right. And then the name of Brittany Murphy came up. And I remember right away she played Ty in Clueless. And I had a very strong vision of her from the film, but I thought, well, I don't know if she's right or not, you know. So she came by, we read her. The instant she walked in, I was like, wow, she looks totally different. She looked nothing like the way she looked in Clueless. And right away when she started speaking, she has just such an infectious attitude. And she's always giggly, always laughing. She could just like turn a gray day into a bright sunny day just by being in the room. She read once, literally just once, and I thought, boy, this is it.
As well as its talented cast, the factor which most sets Drive apart from the rest of its competitors is the electric, hyperkinetic fight action which permeates the drama. With the notable exception of The Matrix, no other Western production has even come close to recreating the intricate, high-energy fight action indigenous to many of the Hong Kong projects, championed by directors like Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, and Yuen Wo-ping. Steve and Koichi now reveal the secrets to their groundbreaking approach to cinema fight choreography.
The big difference about shooting a fight scene like this in Drive versus a regular American film, like for instance, in a regular American action film, when they do a fight, they treat it like traditional barroom brawl. And what they do is they get two guys in there and like they'll do a pretty simple choreography or whatever, and the guys will go in there and they'll do a master shot. And they'll come in and they'll punch in for this guy's reaction and his punches. And they'll come back and they'll cover this guy's thing and they'll cut it together. Well, if I may be so bold as to say, I think people who do that really don't know what the hell they're doing. They just don't know. Because if you look at the way Hong Kong films are shot, the way the fight is choreographed, the way it's shot, it's all montage cutting. One shot, you see this amount of choreography, the camera moves with it, everything's there. The next shot, it's a continuation of the shot previously. The next shot, there's no master shots, there's no coverage, everything flows. It flows like water, as Bruce Lee would say.
Usually, when we choreograph the fight sequence, I come up with the basic idea of the fight sequence. And as we walk through, I have a senior guy, Tatsuro, he's the leader of the Alpha Stunts. He watch over from behind, and he see my choreography. And he comes in and adjusts my choreography because he can see it as an audience point of view. Because when you choreograph by yourself, you go into it, so you don't know sometimes exactly what's good for the camera. So I have my senior guy watch me when I choreograph, and he can suggest me, oh, maybe Koichi, you should do this, better for camera this way. Maybe rhythm-wise, you're doing too much pam, 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 pam. You should get kick here. You don't have a reaction for a while. Maybe you should pam, hit the guy reaction here. If you have too much reactions or too much reaction back to back, you have to break down the rhythm. So we all discuss together. And now after I choreograph, I'm going to have my junior guy, which is Yuji, perform for me. So now me and Tatsuro can stay back and watch the whole sequence so that we all have our own opinions. And Yuji is a great acrobat. He has a lot of great ideas, so he can also put ideas. So most of the time on the fight choreography, it's not just from my idea, from three of us all put together.
It was kind of cool because when Koichi and I work together, we're synchronized. We do a fight scene. What I do is I come up with a concept of the fight, like, okay, these guys will have stun sticks. One hit, with the stun stick, and the fight's over. Now let's choreograph this fight. But the catch is, we're gonna put it in a tiny little motel room with some sparse furniture. Now, how do we make a scene that'll kick your ass? And that was the concept. We go to a location, I bring Koichi's guys there, I say, go, do it. They spend all day there, they're choreographing all this crazy stuff. While I'm working out all the logistics of the shoot, and I come back in and I go, what do you got? He shows me stuff, and I go, oh, I love that, I hate that, love that, I hate that. And I said, let's lose this, and let's change that instead. And he goes, all right, I'll be back in 10 minutes. He choreographs more stuff, and I come back in. By the time we're done, it's like, okay, this is our fight. And then we wait, and then by the time the day comes, we're going shot by shot by shot. It's clockwork. camera itself, if you watch carefully, is all choreographed with the action. The moves are there for a reason. It isn't just moving for, you know, I'm not doing monkey cam, like shaking it just to create excitement. The camera is moving specifically with the action at the right moment. And at a certain point, it became so natural for me and Koichi to do this stuff. Camera angle and stuff was never ever a question. You know, it was just like, all right, this is next choreography. Okay, put the dolly here, let's put on this lens here. Now when this happened, you push me in here, and a couple of times the dolly work was so violent that I flew off the camera, you know? So it was just pretty wild stuff, you know? And then the big payoff was seeing it all cut together and stuff, and you know, really just, you know, I got to hand to Koichi. I mean, he really outshined himself this time. I mean, all the projects we worked together, he really did a great job with the choreography, you know, and I was happy that I was able to do it justice by shooting it properly and editing it properly.
In the finest traditions of Hong Kong filmmaking, Steve and Koichi constantly encourage the principal actors to do their own stunts where possible. Despite the inherent danger, they were more than equal to the challenge.
Steve had warned me before, and he also warned Kadeem, because Kadeem had never really done an action picture before, and I had done some action before, but never the type that I wanted to, as far as Hong Kong style, until Steve's project came along. And he said up front from the beginning that we will be coming home with scratches and bruises, and he wants the actors to make contact. He wants us to make contact with the stunt people and physical fighting contact, and they're going to do the same. You know, and he'll keep it as safe as possible, but he wants it to be as real as he can do it, as we can. And that got me excited, because I figure, okay, you know, we're going to take a beating, but if the film comes out even halfway the way we want it to, it's going to be worth it.
I do all my own stunts. I do most of Jackie Chan's stunts. I did most of Mark's stunts. Yeah, you know,